Okay, so welcome to today's Legally Speaking podcast, LinkedIn Live, sponsored by Clio. Today's guest is the brilliant Joe Jones, who has a very remarkable journey of his own from the United States Marine Corps right the way through to the courtroom as a PI trial lawyer. Now he's very much at the forefront of all things legal technology as the co-founder of StreamSettle. So we're going to be diving into some super interesting things today. But with that quick intro, welcome to the show, Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Really glad to be here, man.
It's a pleasure to have you. And what a journey. So let's maybe start at the beginning of your journey, pre-becoming a lawyer. Talk us through that to sort of now tech founder, and what actually motivated you as part of each of those transitions, and how did those sort of experiences shape your approach to innovation, specifically within legal?
Yeah. So I feel like I was one of those kids that always knew I was going to be a lawyer. I did my career project on being a lawyer when I was in 10th grade, and people just always told me I should be a lawyer. So that was just kind of the track I took. But I also wanted to serve in the military. And so luckily there was an overlap where I could do that in the Marine Corps. I could practice law as a Marine officer. And it was a really awesome, really awesome experience for me. And so, yeah. And then, I kind of knew that it was going to be just a 4-year active duty kind of deal and then get out. And I did some time in the reserves. But when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a criminal defense attorney. There was a lot of overlap with PI lawyers. So I was introduced to the Trial Lawyers College as a criminal defense attorney, where I met a lot of PI lawyers. And so that was a pretty good introduction to that field. So when I got out, I already had contacts in that industry and just went that way.
Yeah, and obviously, I know I talk a lot about the importance of growing your network, utilizing your contacts, your Rolodex, all of that good stuff. But I also talk about aha moments. And so, can you share the aha moment for you when you realized that traditional claims resolution process needed a radical overhaul? And what I'm referring to, give a bit more context.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was what my wife and I call a shower idea. So I have these shower ideas, and most of them are terrible. And she's my curator, right? So she'd be like, "No, that's not good."
Yeah, you only have
But
to be
this
right
one,
once, right?
you only have to be right once. So I was in the midst of a trucking case. My wife was Carissa. She's my co-founder of StreamSettle as well. But she was my firm administrator at the time, and we were. It was like December 23rd. We're ready for Christmas, ready for the holidays, and here I am drafting a reply to their response to my motion to get a spoliation instruction, right? And it's on a case that I know is going to settle, and that's the problem for me. Is like, why am I doing this work? I pretty much gotten a wink from the defense counsel, like, hey, don't worry, we just need to go through the motions, but this is going to settle. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not good for me, right? Like, that's not good for me. It's not good for my client. Um, and I would even call the adjuster and not get a call back because she was relying on that defense attorney and really what he was telling her. And so we had no direct negotiation. And so then I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, man, if there was a way where we could just put in our true threshold numbers, my bottom line, her top number, where we can't see them, but if we could detect if they overlap, that would be very helpful right now. And I think we would have a settlement, right? And so I told my wife about the idea, and she said, okay, yeah, that's really good, but somebody's surely already doing that. And we looked into it, and we couldn't find that anyone was doing it. And so from that point forward, we kind of just started rolling with it, and it's become our mission now.
I love that because there's a lot of talk, obviously, about problems, and yeah, absolutely, you need to, understand that there are problems in the world. But what's even better is finding solutions to a problem, and even better than that is actually really being passionate about what you're doing as well, and actually kind of taking people on the journey with what you're doing. That said, there are challenges along the way. So, what were the biggest challenges you faced, actually, sort of from running a law firm to building a legal tech startup, and how have you been able to overcome them? For other people that might be looking for inspiration, share a bit of your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I would say one is just fear, right? Like just the
Yep.
fear of, man, am I making a mistake? Like I've got something that's working right now. I could continue doing this for decades. And I could thrive in what I'm doing. But I feel this calling to do something else. But the fear can really get in the way of that calling. And so it's kind of easy to stay in the status quo. It's easy to stay in what you know and what you're doing. And really overcoming that fear was hard. but I think it became more and more just like a need to do thing for me. And so one of the things that helped me get past that is something small, is just listening to other entrepreneurs' journeys, watching. There's a lot of resources on getting over that fear. Steve Harvey there's a great video called Jump by Steve Harvey. And it's like he's talking to his audience at that show he did, Family Feud, but he gives this great speech about entrepreneurship. And so if anyone's thinking about it, check out Steve Harvey's Jump speech. It's so good. And I still watch that from time to time. Another one was one of the challenges we faced was more technical, and that is in the legal field, we have proven demand. There are cases accruing today. There are cases that accrued yesterday. They will accrue tomorrow. We know that. We know that people are going to continue to need lawyers. And in this space, we're having to create demand because we're not saying, hey, step 5 of your current process, we can do that better. We're saying, hey, we want you to inject a new step into your process, one that you don't even have yet. And so we're having to educate. And really that's the best way to overcome that has just been going out to where the lawyers are. So we go to a lot of conferences, we're meeting with a lot of lawyers, asking for introductions, asking for help. And we've had to learn how to do that. And those have been the best ways of overcoming those challenges we face so far.
Love that. Just getting out there. I always talk a lot. People read my LinkedIn post, NSN, never stop networking. Like you say, going to these conferences, being out there, always being alert to opportunities. And I love that you reference fear. And there's so many acronyms, face everything and rise. And, everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear and all of that. And I'm absolutely belief in that. But I think like you said there, is if you have people around you that can give you inspiration, or you alluded to that video, it could just be that one little turn of phrase, it could just be that 30-second clip, or it could be something. It's so important, and sort of building that circle of people that you value, that you look up to, that you can sense inspiration from, because it is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. There's tough days, and to continue going forwards, having that good energy, as I describe it, around you is so important. So thank you for being very open about that, and sharing your sort of struggles and challenges along the way. But I guess looking from a skill stack perspective then, how did your background as a trial lawyer kind of help you with kind of shaping the way that StreamSettle's triple blind platform actually works? I think it's quite unique.
Yeah, so I think this goes to, if you're starting a company or you're thinking about starting a company, make sure you have a subject matter expert, at least one on your team, because there's certain nuances that you just wouldn't know about otherwise. So for example, we knew with our pricing model, that plaintiff lawyers don't want to spend money that they don't know that they're going to get back, right? And we know that plaintiff lawyers are advancing all the money on their cases. So they're taking a tremendous amount of risk to litigate a case. And so, for example, our pricing model, we made it to where unless we succeed for you, we don't charge you. And so we align our pricing model with their pricing model. We align our success with their success. And that's something that really works for plaintiff lawyers. We also knew when to inject our process into their process. So we know that insurers and plaintiff lawyers incur really high expense at roughly the same points in the litigation. They're both spending money on experts at the same time. They're both spending money on depots at the same time. And so we know that if we inject ourselves right before those cash burn phases, that we have the best chance of helping both sides of the coin here. And so just little things like that, where we know the process so well because we've been through it so long, and we've done it so many times. And so we can figure out ideally where we belong in the process. And that kind of helped from the jump, because we didn't have to do as much customer discovery pre-build, because we already, had a lot of access to our potential customers, and just from our own experience.
Yeah, and you make a good point about having somebody with that subject matter expertise, particularly around the piece of technology that you're trying to build, not just necessarily within legal, but probably within any industry, because like you say, then you can get really into those little things. And I always talk about sort of little touches, big impact. But if you really understand that subject matter and what it is, then you can really refine. And, I talk a lot about specific is terrific, which I've picked up, before. And I think it's so important that you can do that and deliver on that, because I think that's what gives you that unique value, because it's competitive as well, right? The space. like things are always happening, other things are coming into the marketplace. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. You are of course a co-founder, and you've kind of touched on this, but what's it actually been like co-founding a company with your spouse, and how did your kind of different backgrounds complement each other in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard like some people react like, "Oh, you run the company with your wife? Like that's crazy." But I think it's been such an advantage for us because, and sometimes I'm like, man, how did co-founders who aren't married do this? Like, because we constantly have access to each other, we're constantly communicating. And we work from home, so I mean, it's we're constantly communicating about our company, and if we're on a dinner date, we're talking about we're talking about our kids, our three kids, but also our fourth kid, StreamSettle. And we just it's really been great for us just to have that I guess that constant access. But also we just know each other so well. We're best friends. We've been best friends, and it's just we work well together, and it's been a real asset to have that relationship mixed with work and doing those at the same time. So
Yeah, and you obviously both share the passion, and it probably gives you an element of flexibility as well. Like you say, you can work when you need to work, and you can kind of make
absolutely.
things work around the family as well, and that's important. Okay, so for lawyers considering a move into entrepreneurship or indeed legal tech, what skill sets or perhaps mindsets from legal practice have served you best, and perhaps what have you had to unlearn to ensure that you can move your business forward, if anything at all?
Yeah. So one of the things, I mean, it's grueling, right? And I think being a trial lawyer is grueling. It's incredibly stressful. It's scary at times, right? Like you're going in to pick a jury on a big case. That's terrifying a lot of times. And it's in entrepreneurship is the same way. It's scary. It's stressful. And so all that grit that I gained as a trial lawyer has helped serve me as an entrepreneur in the tech field. And um, because things aren't always certain, and in fact it's usually the opposite, right? And so we're constantly taking gambles, we're constantly taking risk, and we're trying to mitigate that as much as possible, but it's still um, a it's still a part of this journey. And so being a trial lawyer, I think really helped me with that, and trained me for having to be an entrepreneur and all the things that we go through as that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because you need resilience, right? It's probably the word that I would use, because
Absolutely.
most days you are putting out fires, but that in a way is not necessarily a bad thing if you've got the threshold for that, because ultimately you're still moving forward. Every fire you're putting out is a step forward. Yes, there might be another fire ahead of you and another fire ahead of you, but if you can continue to kind of be resilient and build up that kind of concrete mindset, almost, you can keep going forwards, and eventually if you keep working, some of those no's will turn around into yeses, and all of that good stuff. Okay, talking now, you're alluding to risk and sort of maybe switching those to confidentiality. How does StreamSettle approach sort of confidential instant binding settlements, and how does that maybe differ from more of the traditional methods people might be used for, and what impacts have you seen?
Yeah. So in the traditional negotiation, in a let's take a personal injury case for example,
Yep.
there's going to be four numbers. There's going to be the plaintiff lawyer's two numbers, and then the adjuster has two numbers. The plaintiff lawyer's two numbers are the real number, and then the number they say out loud, and then the same thing for the insurance adjuster. And so we have a history, and really the insurance industry has conditioned plaintiff lawyers to believe that the longer and they've probably done this very unintentionally, but they, regardless, they've been conditioned to believe that the longer they hold a case, the longer they work that case up, the more the insurance industry will pay. And so the parties usually engage in this long negotiation, this long game of number chicken, where they're saying these numbers that are exaggerated, and they're keeping that real number close to their chest. And so you have many situations, and we know this now based on seeing actual results on our platform, but we have a lot of situations where a case starts out and the plaintiff demands one number and the insurance company offers another number. Both of them think that each other's numbers are completely ridiculous and they're so far apart that this case is never going to settle, right? But in reality, if we looked at their true numbers, there may be an overlap, or they may be very close. And so that's what we do differently is, you can still go through, and you should still go through all the normal negotiations, talk to them, tell them why their case is terrible and why yours is the greatest, and exchange that information, try to change their position. But at the end of the day, before you go and spend money on that next phase of litigation, you would come into StreamSettle and put that true threshold number into our platform. Neither side can see each other's numbers. We can't even see the numbers, but we can detect if they overlap. So if there's an overlap, meaning if the insurer is willing to pay at least as much as the plaintiff lawyer is willing to accept, then at that moment they have a binding settlement at the midpoint of those two numbers. And if there's no overlap, they've risked nothing, because we don't reveal the numbers and no fees are charged. So it's a free way to test your whether a settlement can happen at that point, and to do that before each cash burn, and that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, like you say, so you are kind of hopefully getting all the best advantages of it, and if not, then okay, it's maybe just been an element of time that's been invested. You haven't actually lost from a cost perspective or anything else like you're alluding to there. Okay, what are some of the main misconceptions about legal tech adoption among lawyers and insurers, and how do you go about addressing them?
Yeah, so I think, now being on the other side of this, going from being a plaintiff lawyer to now trying to sell plaintiff lawyers technology, lawyers are slow to accept technology as opposed to other industries. I think we have a lot of history majors and poli-sci majors, not a whole lot of computer science majors that become lawyers. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions is we don't need it. Or they say that, hey, we've already got a process in place for that, or we like to do it this way. And that may be great. You might already have a better process than whatever the tech solution can offer you, but there's no harm in trying something out. And so what I recommend to law firms is have at least one person, and ideally more, that can form like basically an innovation committee. And they're constantly looking at new technology that's coming out to the market. And hopefully these are people that are interested in technology, and then they can brief the partners on, hey, these are some things that might benefit our firm. I think that's a really, really good idea, especially with how much everything is changing right now with AI and how much AI can do for your law practice. If there are firms that aren't using AI yet, what are you doing? Because I don't understand how you could compare the two and go, hey, this is better to not use it. So there's a lot of course, there's a lot of weaknesses in it, and it can't do everything for you, but it can make a lot of things for you more efficient. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest misconception, is that you don't need it. Sure, you may not need it, but you can really, really thrive and improve with it.
I think it probably flips it around the script for you. I always say, and people know, you don't hire a lawyer to answer your question. You hire a lawyer because they know the right questions to ask in the first place to get you the information you need. Similarly with the legal tech, maybe the lawyers who aren't the experts on the legal tech side, from seeing it from both sides of the coin, the types of questions to be asking to actually see these are the efficiencies, or these are the ways that actually these are some of the blind spots where StreamSettle could actually be super valuable to you, and here are the upsides. So yeah, I think there's a nice core messaging in that as well. Okay, looking back then, how has this is more of a personal question, but how has your definition of success evolved from your days of obviously being in the military and sort of practice to now leading a tech company?
Yeah, I think at the beginning of my career, success was defined just, hey, can I get this one case the result I want in it, right? And I'd be really driven on really specific cases, and really just whatever I'm doing that day. Can I win this motion hearing? Can I win this ad set board? Now with StreamSettle, success is defined as we want this to be a standard. We want threshold testing, whether it's with StreamSettle or a future competitor. We want threshold testing to be a standard in every single civil case where there's a disputed damages amount. And we think it's going to save people tremendous amount of money. So it's a much bigger, goal, right? We've really got to do a lot of work ahead of us, and we're in the midst of it right now, and things are going great. But yeah, definitely defining success as once we have market adoption, and on a mass scale. So.
And you're talking obviously about mass scale and growth there. StreamSettle at the moment just in the US, and do you have plans for this to be a globally rolled out option for everyone in the world to be able to use?
So from what I hear, the U.S. is uniquely litigious, and so that's definitely where we want to start. But we think we have a lot of different verticals to explore with our platform. We definitely want to go international and find different use cases where we could be of value. Certainly in the U.S., still we want to explore the real estate vertical, where people without a broker can just put their numbers in for a house, for instance, and then automatically have their documents generated from StreamSettle. So there's different verticals that we want to pursue, and definitely outside of the U.S., whatever use cases we can be of value for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can see how this could dovetail very nicely too, like you say, some of those other verticals there and the growth opportunity ahead of you. How can people help you? You're building, I think LinkedIn is the best platform out there for networking. How can people help you with what you're trying to achieve with StreamSettle?
Yeah, please connect with me. And hop on. You can go to streamsettle.com and you can book a demo straight from there. Connect with me, and we love to hear feedback, and we love to hear like thoughts about our product. People are often very reluctant to give negative feedback or criticism, or their hesitation or reservations of using the technology. We love that. We live on that. So please, if you have anything to say about it or any questions, we would just love to meet with you and talk with you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do have questions, drop them in on the comments, or like Joe says, go and book a demo. It is super impressive what you're building. I think it can really help. And like you say, with the moment we can get it to making it that standard when it comes to the threshold, I think it's going to alleviate so much pain and pressure. Okay, one final question before we close today. It's been really fun, really insightful, really enjoyed learning about your journey and indeed what you're doing with StreamSettle. What advice would you give to legal professionals who see a problem in their industry but aren't sure how to take that first step towards solving it?
Yeah, so if they see a problem that they want to solve, and they have an idea of how to solve it, before taking any steps that cost money or anything, really engage in validation and customer validation and demand validation. And you can do that just by talking to people. Of course, don't tell people, "Hey, this is my idea. What do you think?" Because they're going to always tell you that's a good idea,
Yeah.
even if they think it's terrible. Instead, ask them questions about, "Hey, what do you do right now to solve this problem? If there was an alternative solution to solve that problem, would you use it? What would you think of X to solve that problem?" And you can ask them that stuff. But as soon as you tie yourself to it, you're not going to get genuine answers. So do a lot of research into your potential customer base. Talk to them, and yeah, and always reach out to people who've been on this journey before. You can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk entrepreneurship or whatever tech ideas you have. Just let me know.
Yeah, reach out to people, right? Like you say, mentors. People can give you that one piece of wisdom, and like you're alluding to there, try and be as client-centered or future client-centered as possible in terms of understanding, like how can this potentially be super super valuable. Thank you, Joe. Really enjoyed your inspiring journey from obviously Marine Corps to the courtroom to now obviously getting ahead in all things legal tech. So for anyone watching, just remember, folks, if you see an inefficiency in your industry, that is your invitation to go out there and actually create change, and that's exactly what you've been doing, Joe. So it's been an absolute blast having you on the show. Definitely reach out to him to grab a demo. You'll be super impressed. But until next time, from all of us here on the Legally Speaking podcast, sponsored by Clio, thanks again for joining us, Joe. Over and out.
Thank you, Rob.